In tonight's deep dive, the growing rift between the Trump administration and some of the United States' historic allies in Europe over a potential U.S. takeover of Greenland. President Trump says that he wants to take control of the island, which is a Danish territory, for national security reasons. Leaders on the other side of the Atlantic have resoundingly condemned the idea, as well as the tariffs President Trump says he'll impose on European countries who don't go along. Now, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who says he spoke with President Trump earlier today, also said that applying tariffs on allies for pursuing collective security for NATO allies is wrong. For more on this, I'm joined by former U.S. Ambassador to Poland, Daniel Fried, as well as ABC News contributor and former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, retired Lieutenant General Doug Lute. Thank you both for joining me. Ambassador Lute, I want to play part of what Republican Congressman Michael McCaul said earlier today on This Week when asked about what the Trump administration's push to take control of Greenland could mean for the future of the NATO alliance. Take a listen to this.
If he wants to purchase Greenland, that's one thing, but for him to militarily invade would turn Article 5 of NATO on its very head and, in essence, put us at war with NATO itself. It would end up abolishing NATO as we know it, an organization that has lasted for over 4 to 5 decades and protected us from world wars.
Ambassador Lute, what impact do the president's threats have on the future of the NATO alliance?
Well, as the congressman mentioned, NATO has counted for over 75 years, so since 1949, on two fundamentals. First of all, American leadership among the now 32 allies, but second of all, a binding trust among the allies that they really have one another's backs. And I think the president's most recent threats of tariffs and potentially even military action against an ally in Greenland place both of those founding principles at risk.
Now, Ambassador Fried, Denmark's foreign minister, said earlier today that the United States is more than just the president, and also that there's a system of checks and balances. What impact can members of Congress and the American public have on whether or not the Trump administration follows through on the threats of taking control of Greenland?
I think Congress can have a major impact. There seems to be very little support in Congress for U.S. military action against an ally for no good reason. And there would be no good reason for attacking Greenland. There's no U.S. interest that we can better achieve through cooperation. In any event, Congress, there have been bills introduced, bipartisan bills in both the House and the Senate, to block the use of funds for any military pressure against Greenland. Now, I don't know that these bills could get a veto-proof majority, but they seem to have a lot of momentum behind them. And I think that given the lack of support in Congress, that could make a difference. And the fact is that Americans don't support attacking a friend and an ally for no good reason. And there is no good reason. Every security interest of the United States in Greenland can be better achieved through cooperation with Greenland and Denmark. We already have the right to put forces in there if we want. We have the treaty that allows us to do this. So there's no good reason for any of this whatsoever.
Now, Ambassador Lute, NATO has been strained over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. What impact might the Trump administration's actions have on that conflict?
Well, I think one of the things that is still in question with regard to bringing a ceasefire to Ukraine is its question of security guarantees once the war has paused, right? And America is obviously in a position to contribute to that regime of security guarantees. However, I think if the president steps on Greenland, place in question our existing security guarantees, like the NATO treaty, then why is it that anyone would believe another security guarantee in the future with regard to Ukraine? So I think there's a fundamental connection here about American commitment and whether what we say is what we will do.
Now, Ambassador Fried, you've served during both Democratic and Republican administrations. Do you see what's happening now as a typical shift in diplomacy when you often see the White House change hands? Or is this more significant than that?
The threat to attack a NATO ally and for the purpose of conquering a country, conquering a people that doesn't want to be conquered, does not fit U.S. strategy as Republicans and Democrats for generations have practiced it. Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, Reagan all had differences, but they all supported an American grand strategy that said, we're going to uphold a free world, and instead of the dictators and tyrants of Hitler and Stalin, we're going to have a better world. And for all our failings as Americans, we actually did a pretty good job in leadership of the free world. What Trump is doing for no good reason, for the sake of conquest in Greenland, makes no sense. And Ambassador Lute, General Lute, is absolutely right. We've been making pretty good progress putting together security arrangements for Ukraine. In fact, the Trump administration should be given some credit for that, because we've worked with the Europeans, and this is a pretty good deal that seems to be on the table. Now, the Ukrainians are ready to accept it, but why at that point start fighting with the very countries that are going to be front and center in providing security for Ukraine if we get to a deal? Again, there's no U.S. interest that is advanced by bullying Denmark or trying to grab Greenland when we already have all the security permissions we need to do what we need to do in Greenland.
Striking questions there, Ambassador. Former Ambassador Daniel Freed and retired Lieutenant General Lute, thank you.